friends. Welcome back to another episode of the Long Distance Friends podcast. My name is Liv. Happy Memorial Day. Trying to be sort of festive. Let me tell you about my new hobby. So it's not a new hobby, but like I'm gonna lean into it more. I think I want to learn how to like make my own clothes, right? I have been big into thrifting recently, and like I'll go to like the rich areas for their clothes just because like rich people really be giving away brand new shit with tags. And then Goodwill is just like $5. And I'm like, this has a retail value of like 100, like not 100. What is it? I don't know. I got something that had a tag on it that was like the cutest little Azazi dress, and it was like $40. And they were like, yeah, $3. And I was like, it doesn't fit me, but I will find someone who it does fit because it's so cute. Like if I could fit my fucking broad shoulders, wide rib cage ass into it, I would. And I will say, there's part of me that's like, do I really have a wide rib cage, or is it just like I don't do enough cardio? I've started doing more cardio. So check back in like 4 or 5 weeks when I'm consistent with it to see if I like I'm looking at this shoulder right now. That bitch looks, oh, so good. So good. Consistency is key. All right. You got to be consistent. You got to show up. You got to be there for yourself. But yeah, so I've been really into flipping thrifts. So my top that I'm wearing right now is so, so, so cute. It's like a little, what is the print that Pollyanna wears? Gingham? Gingham? I don't know what it's called. I didn't look into fashion that hard. But it's like the cutest little halter top, which like I look really good in halter tops based off of like the distance of my shoulders. Cause again, we're a broad shoulder bitch. All right. I learned that very early on in life. My mom was like, you look good in halter tops because you so strong. And I was like, oh, amazing. Love it. But it's super cute. It's blue and white. And it is like a tie in the back type of situation. And it was like a bit bigger in the bust because things that fit around my ribs don't always fit my non-existent boobs, right? So I have been buying clothes from thrift stores and then mending them to I guess it would be altering. So like mending and altering them. So like this one I mended or I altered. I altered the sides of it so that the like chest part would be like kind of loose and bloused the way that it's meant to be, but not so much that it's like, are you supposed to have tits in that? Because you are. Like this was made for somebody with big old titties. And alas, that is not me. But it's so cute and it's like one of my good colors. Soleil. I look good in blue. That's why our wallpaper is blue. Also, I like the color blue. I like the color blue and I like the color pink. Okay. And I don't know, I've been having fun with it. When I was a kid, I was really into sewing. And I remember I made myself like a dress once. And it was like very, very simple, but like I made it and I was so proud of that. And I think there's a younger version of me that like loved fashion and loved playing dress up and loved, being adventurous with clothing. And I'm trying to like reconnect with that part of myself. I saw this TikTok that like really made me think because it was like, who's the real you? What is your authentic personality before you started trying to people please? And the place that we find the most authentic personality of ourselves is like, who were you when you were young? Like before you were 7 years old, what were the personality traits that you had? Like, what were your interests when you were, 4 through 7? What were those things? And I look back at that, and that's where I'm like, last week I talked about the summer camp that I went to. I went to that summer camp when I was 6 years old, right? And I remember it was a sleepaway camp. It was a full week sleepaway camp. And the first year I went, I was 5 or 6. I was in kindergarten. It was the summer before kindergarten. So I think I was 5, right? I was too young to be there. Oh, sorry. I remember going the second year because the way the cabins were named, it was like everybody who was like this age bracket was in, like, depending on how many kids there were, this cabin. And then ages this to this were in the next cabin. And if there were any stragglers from the younger group, they just went into the next one and like so on and so forth. So that way, everybody in these cabins was about the same age, right? Like it would be really weird to have a 6-year-old and a 9-year-old in the same cabin because they just have different interests. Like the development is so exponential at that point in time. So I think I was 5 years old the first time we went because no, I think I was six because my sister had gotten a scholarship when she was 8. And that was her first year. She was 8 years old. She got a scholarship to go there because the local garden club did like an essay contest for third graders. My sister won that and it funded her trip or her camp week. And that was the first time she went, and I did not go with. And then she came back. She had such a great time. My dad sent both of us the following couple years. Um, was it? It was. I think it was third grade because we're 3 years apart. Okay, so I think I was 6 the first year. I think I was 6. I might be wrong, but I just remember the following year I was in the same cabin, and I remember my first year I had these two counselors who like I loved. One of them was like 21, and she like totally had a little flirtationship with one of the guys in the kitchen. So like every night he was sneaking over to our cabin to like hang out with us and talk to her. And we were like, "Are we allowed to have boys in the cabin?" And she was like, "You guys aren't. Like it's an all girls week. So no." And then he would sneak her grilled cheeses. And I knew I was her favorite camper because I was the only one who she would like share her grilled cheese with. And I was also like the youngest one there, right? Because everybody was like 7. I was a full year younger than everybody my first year. And I remember being like, that's fine. Like I always hang out with my sister and her friends. Like I'm used to hanging out with people that are older than me. And I just remember, I think her name was Nicole. Like Nicole and this one dude in the kitchen were like, little 6-year-old me was like, oh my God, I like can't wait to be just like her. Like I'm gonna love it. And she'd sneak me grilled cheeses and we'd like sit out and snack them together while everybody else was doing whatever. And like the other counselor in the cabin, I ended up having as another counselor, like she was my counselor a couple years later. So I think we went for 4 years. I think we went for 4 years. So that first year, it was like that. And I was a sleepwalker. That was another thing. So I was like big time sleepwalker, sleep talker at this point in my life. And I remember like waking up one morning and I was like, my butt is really hurting. And they were like, yeah, you fell last night. And I was like, where? Because I was always a bottom bunk girly. I never wanted to be a top bunk. I never, ever, ever, ever. Because I have to pee in the middle of the night too much. I don't want to have to crawl down because I got to pee, right? And it's easier to make your bed when it's on the bottom bunk. So I remember they like woke up and Nicole was like, "Do you sleepwalk at home?" And I was like, I think so. Like sometimes my dad has like funny stories of it. And they were like, yeah, you were trying to leave the cabin in the middle of the night. Like you were screaming for your sister out the door. And I, like in my sleep, tried to elope and was like walking out the front door. And they were like, we fully like just like tied you to Nicole's bed. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. They're like, yeah, you fell and then you just went back to bed. I was like, oh, okay, that's fine. Like, no, that's literally so normal. And I slept walked like 3 nights that week. And they were like, girl. And I was like, I can't help it. Like, I'm asleep. But I remember the following year, I was in the same cabin as I was the first year. And I remember saying that to one of my counselors where I was like, oh, that's crazy. Like, I've been in the Ocklawaha cabin twice. And they were like, that's impossible. Cause like that is the cabin that like the youngest girls go in. And I was like, yeah, like I was here last year. And they were like, how old are you? And I was like, oh, I'm 7. And they were like, yeah, you shouldn't have been like, how old were you the first time you came here? And I was like, 5 or 6, like whatever. And they were like, you should not have gotten into the like full week sleepaway. Like there's like a day camp that happens later in the summer that like little kids go to. And like you should have been in that. And I was like, I don't know. My dad dropped me off and you guys took me. Like my dad filled out the paperwork. I don't know. And it was so funny, but they were like, what the fuck? I don't know if it was because I had a sibling there or just because they paid. But either way, I was there way too early. And like, I fucking love that shit. And so I think, moral of the story, I think I'm getting closer to like really connecting with those parts of me of like, but wait, I like loved these things. Like, obviously, the things that brought me joy as a young girl still bring me joy as an adult woman, right? Like, the Barbie movie, I feel like, was like such a showcase of that, of like, I work with so many women that are like, no, I fucking love Barbie everything. You know, like I work with a woman who literally has like a Jeep and like has the like Barbie stickers on it because she was like, it's my Malibu Barbie Jeep. Like, love. Okay. One of my girlfriends has a Barbie like Mattel tag on the back of her car and is like, yeah, so now it like looks like a little toy car that like Barbie drives because this Barbie drives, a Nissan Juke or like a Buick. And I love it. I love it because like, why wouldn't we just be like, yeah, if this is something that's like always brought me joy, of course it's still going to bring me joy now. Right. So I'm reconnecting with that. I'm reconnecting with that as much as I can. And one of those things for me was fashion and was clothing and was sewing. And I remember really wanting to get into sewing. I then later on tried to get into like crochet because I was like, maybe that'll be easier. And it wasn't. Like, you have to do so much counting. And I was like, fuck that. But I loved sewing. And I never really learned how to use a sewing machine. Like, no one ever taught me how to use a sewing machine. I think my grandma tried, but I was like too young to really grasp it. And then when I was like 8, I really was like fashion, 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 fashion. And, would sew my little clothes and I'd try to like put things together. And I just like never really fully learned it. Like, it very much was a self taught skill. I learned how to do a basic stitch and I ran with it. And so I did everything by hand, teeny tiny little thread. I didn't know how to like measure how much thread I needed. I just fully winged it. And so I'm kind of doing that now with like mending of thrifted finds in order to like fit me better. But I'm like, where do you take classes to learn that? Because I feel like that would be so fun to like take a class at like Joanne Fabric, I think might do it, of like learn how to use a sewing machine. I can probably fucking thrift a sewing machine because so many mammals are dying. And people are like, well, we're not going to keep her shit. So we're just going to throw it at the Goodwill. And I could probably get something there. And who knows, maybe this time next year I'll be wearing an outfit that I've completely made myself. Because, like, I'm not saying that fabric is like higher quality if you buy it yourself and then try to like put it together. But like fast fashion is so real. And also, like, I know that my body just looks different than other people's. I know that my proportions are different than the average person. Hold on. So, like, being able to make clothes that actually fit me, right? Like, what a game changer. And I've thought about like the fact that like the only time that we have clothes really made for us nowadays, because that used to be how it was, right? You only had a few outfits, you had a few staple pieces that were like generic, but all of your clothing was made for your body. Like, we are now trying to find clothes that fit our body rather than like finding the clothes that we want to wear and making it fit our body. I think that's what I was trying to say. Like, getting things altered, I feel like was so prevalent in the past. Like, one of my grandmothers, God rest her soul, was so lanky and thin. And I don't like, I take after her a little bit, but also like I take after my other grandmother a bit more. Okay. Me and Graham are similar, right? I got the hips from her. I didn't get tits from her. I have like, it's so funny. I like pinpoint out where I'm like, so like my mom's side of the family did not give me my chest. My dad's side of the family, probably because that grandma was so thin, so, so, so thin, right? I hope that I don't inherit the cancer, but whatever. And she was so healthy and fit too. Like, she was like super active and just like cancer. Anyways, yeah, no, I have my other grandma's genes when it comes to my thickness in my hips and my butt and my thighs. She's so big. I'm like, but you have great legs. And I'm like, I do have great legs, but also with great legs comes great ass. Dumpy McDumperstein is back, bitches. So my grandma with the lanky arms. She used to have to get all of her clothes altered because she was so thin and her arms were like longer than the rest of her body by like crazy amount. And so she'd have to like buy a size up in order to have the right length of the sleeves, but then would have to like get things altered in the body, or she would have to get things that fit the body and then try to like extend the arms. And I'm not, I don't have that problem, but like I know that like the way that like my measurements work, where like my waist is smaller than my hips, but also like not enough that like some of these Fashion Nova snatched outfits fit, right? Because like I'm not that level, but clothes used to be made for you versus clothes are made and you just got to figure out what works for it. Because that's, I think, really unfair where it's like, I see all these things of like dress for your body type and like, okay, but also what about I make clothes that I want to wear accommodated to my body? Like an A-line dress, I think looks so gorgeous and fun and good. And like sometimes I think they look good on me, and other times I'm like, I look like I'm wearing a fucking brown paper bag, right? Because I have a bit more curve towards the bottom of my body, not so much at the top of my body. And so I look really boxy up top, and then I lose all of my like softness and I look really rigid. And it's just, it doesn't look like it fits me properly. That being said, I did buy an A-line dress that's I'm looking forward to wearing this summer. But so yeah, I think I want to get into better understanding how to sew and mend and make clothing so that I can really make clothes that are nice and fit me. Because the only time that we have clothes that are made for our body specifically anymore is when you get married. Like that's really the only time that we see something that like, you look at someone and you're like, oh, that dress fit them perfectly. And it's like, yeah, because they got it altered to do so. That's how it used to be. Like that's part of it that I think I look into of like, we look back at like old fashion and it's like, oh, the clothes were just better and like their bodies were different and the food was different. Like, yes, that is true. Like we have evolved as a society to look a different way. We see more things. There's also, the whole background of like there were laws that prevented people who were not as attractive in appearance or disabled from being in public spaces and being documented as part of society. So therefore, when we look at those photos, we don't see people that had deformities, disabilities, that looked not like the most quote unquote ideal person. And that's problematic in and of itself. And I won't get too deep into that. But, clothes were made for your body. It was so normal to like, I'm going to buy this new dress and I'm going to get it altered to fit my hips and to fit my, so that it did fit the right way. You weren't just buying something off the rack and it fit you perfectly. It was understood if I'm going to buy this off the rack and then I'm going to get it taken in the chest a little bit because I just have a smaller chest. We don't do that anymore, and especially with fast fashion where we're like, okay, we're just going to like blow through it. And like, I'll just buy something else. I'll buy something that's supposed to be tighter. I'm going to buy something that, looks different, does this, does that. And then when we have the fast fashion, the quality of the clothing is so much less. And, like I love a tennis dress. We know this. I was looking into tennis dresses on Amazon and I'm like, it's frustrating because I'm like, I know what the composition of the material that I like is. Like, I like something that is at least 70% nylon, the rest spandex. And in order to get like the cheapest I could find that had close to that, ratio of material was like $40. And I was like, that's crazy for one tennis dress, just one. And like I think about Lululemon. I have such a bone to pick with Lululemon. Lululemon used to have a lifetime warranty where when you bought Lululemon anything, this is a product that we have such a high quality standard for. Like you used to be able to buy Lululemon leggings and they would last you a lifetime. Like you only bought new ones because the style or the color changed. Like if they tore, you just brought them back in. And they were like, that's unacceptable. You're right. Here's a brand new pair. Right. And now, not the case. Not the case. You bring them in and they're like, oh, yeah, well, you can get like $5 off your next order. And I think that that's so bullshit that like a lot of brands no longer hold themselves to a high quality standard, but are still charging the same prices that they charged when they were of high quality. So like Lululemon used to be $110 for a pair of leggings, right? Or like a running jacket, but they were 80 to like 75 to 80% nylon and then spandex or like whatever blend it was in order to like best accommodate, the athletic need. And I will say, like, look for things that are higher in nylon, like, try to avoid polyester. Really look at what you're doing. Like, I shop a lot on Amazon just because, like, I get so anxious going into stores. But you can, like, scroll down into the description of the item, and in the description, it'll tell you what this item is made of. Like, they have to disclose that, right? Like, they have to put that out there. And if they don't buy that product. But, look at what it is and determine, like, what is higher quality. So, like, I've researched what like part of why I do the 70/30 is I researched what the old composition of Lululemon was. I looked into like, okay, these are products that historically I liked and I still like and I still love. Like it's frustrating for me that like my hips have gotten wider, my butt has gotten bigger, so I don't fit into as much of the Lululemon I've acquired over the years. Now it's not even like I can bring them in and swap them out because they don't fucking do that anymore. But looking at what the composition of those items were and then being mindful of that when I'm buying new outfits and products and clothing that, hey, I know that this blend is going to sustain me for a very long time. So I'm going to lean into that. I'm going to, try to keep up getting that. And if you have any questions, let me know. I could talk about this all day, but I'll try to avoid it. So I'm getting some new tennis dresses. It'll be so, so fun because I'm like really trying to lean into it this summer. Like I have two right now, and I didn't get them until like the fall last year. I think I talked about it on here of like I had a very specific idea for what I wanted my travel outfits to look like when I was flying. Where was I flying to? Seattle? When I went to Seattle, I had like a really specific image of what I wanted my outfits to look like. And it was like so good. I wore my little like jean jacket, my white dress, my little sneakers, and my like necklace stack, the whole nine yards. It was so gorge. Got so many compliments, and I was like, "Oh, this little old thing. Oh, please, it's just a tennis dress and a jean jacket. It's nothing fancy." And people are like, "No, it's beautiful." And I was like, "Oh, well, thank you. Just say it one more time." Not really. If they wanted to, I'd be fine with it. So yeah, fashion, getting back into it, mending stuff from Goodwill, and I'm having fun with it. I feel like I'm reconnecting with that version of myself. I also bought a Christmas sweater, like an ugly Christmas sweater from Goodwill, and I got to mend that as well. I bought a trench coat and I want to redo the buttons. One of the buttons broke, so I want to replace them with like more fun buttons, something kind of like something a little fun and flashy just to add personality to it. And I'm also trying to like be mindful of like, I want to do like new and exciting outfits, but also I love a very plain outfit that I can accessorize. Like having a staple outfit that I can just change up the earrings and, the jacket, like being able to add to it and accessorize, I think has always been a big thing for me. And I want to move into something else because this is maybe a controversial opinion, but I've been seeing it so much lately. And like, I just have to get it off my chest and talk about it because like, I think it's so tacky. I think it's so wasteful. I think it's fucking stupid. But what the fuck is a bed party? And I'll tell you what a bed party is. A bed party, BED, like the thing you sleep on, is something that's become really popular on social media and with like the youth of America today, where when they are celebrating something, they get their bed decked out, right? And so in college, I remember during like Big Little Reveal, one of the things was to like drop something off at the littles dorm room. And I remember like when I was a freshman, one of my roommates, like I lived in a suite that had bedrooms. I didn't live in like a classic dorm where it was like bunk beds and a shared room and a shared bathroom. I knew that that was something that like I didn't want because it would really overwhelm me. And oh God, I'm not even going to get into it. It was chaos. So I remember one of my roommates, like her whole bedroom was like decked out with balloons and signs and streamers, and like her bedroom door had like signage on it and whatever, and it was all decorated and it was like a huge thing. She was like, this is so fun, whatever. I remember the year that I was a big, like, I just dropped the basket off at her bed. I was like, here's the things, right? Like, nothing crazy. And then I'd see other ones on social media and I was like, I was supposed to do that? Like, I had no idea. I had never heard of it before. And now it's like such a common thing where it's like balloons and like snacks and blankets and posters and tapestries and like balloon arches over the bed. And it's like, now it's not like the whole room, it is just on the bed, which calling it a bed party is very weird to me. But like, I struggle with the fact that like I would look at this and I would feel bad. I would feel bad because I'm like, well, I've got to move this so that I can go to sleep. And like someone spent so much time making this. And like you'll see the photos of girls like kneeling on their bed with like, the balloons with like the graduation year and the college that they're going to. And like it's crazy. Melania Giudice, Teresa Giudice from Real Housewives of New Jersey, she posted hers or her sister's because she got into the University of Tampa. She's graduating from high school. I think it was Melania. It was Melania. And was like, you know, oh my God, like my bed party, whatever. And like had some of her girlfriends there to like take photos, which was really fucking weird to me. Fun fact, I did look at the University of Tampa and they only had shared rooms. And I was like, I just can't get on board with like two other women in my space. Like, I just won't have any space. And like, I don't think I can handle that because like I don't know these people, right? I don't know them. But good for her. Rock on, girl. Rock on with your bad self. I can't get on board with it. Like it also seems kind of wasteful because like everything is like branded for the university. And I'm like, I don't, maybe it's just like a me thing, but like I don't keep a lot of like University of Alabama branded stuff around. Like I have a couple of sweatshirts, but like I never was like, oh yeah, give me, Alabama themed bedding and blankets and tapestries. Like that's stuff I'm going to use in the future. Like, no, I'm going to decorate my home in a way that feels like authentic and comfortable and cozy to me. And that doesn't involve like a crazy amount of memorabilia from the place that I've given an insane amount of money to in order to have an education that provides me the ability to, you know, gain access to a career that I desire and to obtain knowledge that probably should and could be more accessible. So I think bed parties are wasteful. I think they're stupid. I like if you love it, good for you. But like I can't get on board. It's like crazy to me that we're putting that much time and energy and all that. Moving right along. Another thing that's on my list that I want to talk about is hyaluronic acid. So I am a big user of hyaluronic acid. I have dry skin. I've had dry skin for a very long time. My skincare routine, I have not been on to the degree that I used to be, and I need to get back on it. I used to dermaplane every month. It's been a while. Hold on. Sorry, I had a kitty cat try to do something wild. So I used to get facials every single month, and she would dermaplane my face for me. And then I was like, I can do this at home, and I can save money, and I can budget. And so I started doing it myself, and like definitely not as well, where I was like, why is my face so itchy afterwards? And it was never itchy like this when she did it. So I don't know what I'm doing wrong, but I have not done that in a couple months because, like, a couple different reasons. One, I'm dating someone who I've kind of talked to, and I've like disclosed it with a few partners and like people that I was seeing that I was like, yeah, I shave my face every month because I once upon a time, many years ago, dated someone that just like was not a nice person and told me that I was too hairy for them and was like, your eyebrows are like crazy, which I was like, what? Because I didn't wax my eyebrows at the time, but like my eyebrows looked fine. Like no one had ever spoken to me about like, oh girl, you gotta trim those up. And like I love my girlfriends. I know that my girlfriends would have been like, babe, you've got some caterpillars going on. Like you gotta do something with that. Never. And then was like, in your mustache, it's like kissing a dude. I am a natural blonde. Like you cannot see he told me my arms were too hairy, said it bothered him that I didn't shave my legs enough. And I was like, no one has ever made me feel this self-conscious of my body ever. And I just like, I remember sitting there and being like, my arm hair, my like non existent clear arm hair is gross. So I like shaved my arms once just to see what it looked like. And then like the hairs grow back kind of wonky. And I wish I never did that. But like, you really can't see it. And also, like, it's there to protect you. It's there for a reason. So, like, fuck anybody that makes you feel bad about that. But like the upper lip really got me. And I'm like, now I see it. Like, I had never, ever noticed the hair on my upper lip, ever. And then someone made me feel bad about it. And it was the only thing I saw. And so I remember the first time I got a facial with her name was Andrea. She was so amazing. I love her so much. She was like, so like what brings you in, whatever. And I was like, yeah, like I know dermaplaning like gets rid of the fuzz and the peach fuzz. I also had really bad acne at the time on my cheeks, which like I have like two teeny tiny little scars left, but like dermaplaning has helped me get rid of so much. And she was like, so it's gonna help with that. But like the reason of doing it of like my boyfriend says I have a mustache, dump him. And I did like 2 days after I got the facial. But now I'm dating someone who literally looks at me and I'm like, oh my God, the mustache is coming back in. He's like, what? Like, you look gorgeous. And I've never noticed that. And like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, oh, right. Because like normal people don't look at that. Like someone who hates you will find any reason to tear you down. But someone who like cares about you is not going to see the flaws that you see in yourself. Right. Like, really think about that for a minute. You know, the people that you love and admire and care about, do you notice those kinds of things? You don't. Do they bother you? Probably not, right? So maybe if someone is making you feel bad about the way that you exist in your most natural state, maybe that person just secretly hates you and you should fucking walk away. Anyways, so I have not been keeping up with shaving my face, also partially because I'm like, so I will say my chin feels so crusty. So crusty. And I want to dermaplane it, but also, oh boy has like facial hair. And I feel like maybe the fuzz helps prevent me from like having my skin ripped off of my face. So that's part of why I'm hesitant. And I'm also worried that like if it's like a little bit of stash rash, if I shave it, is it gonna make it worse? I don't know. So there's that to begin with. And then let's stack on top of it, right? After I shave it, right, I do my retinol. And I used to like be aggressive with like exfoliate, retinol, rest day, exfoliate, retinol. And I had that cycle going. And I was like, I'm skin cycling. It's great. It's all the things because I saw it on TikTok. And then I was like, I'm 24. And at the time I was 22, 21. No, I was 20, 22, 23. And I was like, I really don't need to be using this much retinol. Like I really don't. You know, once a month, once a week, I think max, especially because like I also have really sensitive skin to begin with. So after I dermaplane my face, I'll put a little bit of retinol on and then I slug, you know, and I'm like, I don't know if I'm doing it right. I'm just doing what like I think works well. And I'm very, I guess, like intuitive with my skincare because I'm like, I'm just doing my best. You know, I'm looking into products that don't make my skin burn or itch or like feel like shit. And then I'm going to lean into that and figure out whatever. And like, I don't exfoliate my face with like an exfoliant as much as I should probably. You know, I don't want to use the little, God, the peach walnut shell face washes that they used to sell us that like create literally cuts in your skin. It's so aggressive. And like they always hurt me. And like I'd go over to people's houses and they'd have them. They'd be like, it's so good. And I was like, I don't like the way this feels. There was this St. Ives matcha exfoliate, like blackhead exfoliating face wash that was like grainy but smoother. Loved that shit. Loved it. Don't use it because it scares me. Like any kind of facial exfoliant that's not like a chemical exfoliant scares the shit out of me. I used to use the glycolic foaming acid wash from Mario Badescu, and I really liked it. I had used that in high school and in college, and like that was always my exfoliating face wash, like always. And I was like, I don't know if I should be using this. And then I like saw stuff that it was like glycolic acid and water, like you shouldn't be mixing it, whatever. And I was like, all right, I don't know what else to do. I used to be like exclusively a Mario Badescu girl where I did that glycolic face wash. And then I had the cleansing milk if I wore makeup and like the more gentle face washes for Mario Badescu. And then for my lotions, I either did the honey moisturizer or the like blue one. And that was like my rotation. And then I also had like a jojoba oil that I would sometimes use. And then I matured my skincare because I was like, one, I'm paying like a crazy amount of money that like when I look at the ingredients, like they're really not that different. And also like I'm still having like skin issues with these products and was like having a little bit of irritation that I like could not pinpoint. And I was like, all right, we're just going to like plain Cetaphil and CeraVe. CeraVe, I don't know. So currently I do the daily, like the regular Cetaphil wash. And that's what I use for like exfoliation. So like I don't use it that often because like I used to use the gentle face wash from Cetaphil and that worked great. It has glycerin, so it's like super, super hydrating. And it worked out really well for me, but sometimes I just didn't feel like my face was fully clean. Like I felt like I had to wash my face twice because it was so gentle. And then I was like, oh, maybe because like I don't need to like rub all of the skin off of my face every single day. Like that makes sense. So I use the daily wash of that, once a week. And then I do this CeraVe hydrating oil cleansing face wash every single day. And I've really liked that. I think it's been really helpful for my skin and like getting kind of glowy and moisturized because I know that historically my skin has been very dry. And I follow it up with either the like Vanicream daily moisturizer or the CeraVe daily moisturizer with SPF. Eventually I put on both. Like I put on SPF before I leave the house, but before that I try to get into the serums. I used to do retinol, and then with the retinol, sometimes I would put like the CeraVe lotion, but I would like dilute the CeraVe lotion with like Aquaphor or Vaseline, and then I just started doing retinol and then Vaseline because that was what I saw, or Aquaphor, and seal that shit in, right? I do it a lot during the winter. Like during the winter, I almost don't use lotion at all. It's almost exclusively CeraVe. But I've always been into serums. When I was getting facials regularly, I was doing a rose hip oil pretty much every single day. And that was kind of helpful for like the redness and the inflammation. And now I do like a rose water spray. This alarm won't stop going off. Oh my God. Sorry, that was so crazy. I know this editing is going to be so choppy. My alarm in my bedroom went off like 3 times and I had canceled it. Like I had changed it to go off at like 8 a.m. It's currently 9:33 a.m. I woke up at 6:30 and I just could not fall back to sleep, which is probably going to bite me in the ass later because I fell asleep at like 2 a.m. But it kept going off and I kept having to like get up and run in there to be like, turn off. And it would be like, okay. And then I'd come back in here and I'd hear it going off again. Like it made no sense. But so I used rose hip oil. It cleared up a lot of the inflammation and the redness and all that. And then I started doing the hyaluronic acid because I had talked to the esthetician who I was seeing regularly. And she was like, I think it would be really beneficial for you just because like you get so dry. And so I've started really doing that over the past like year. And I think it's been phenomenal game changer. And recently TikTok was like, if you want plump, juicy, gorgeous lips, start incorporating your hyaluronic acid onto your lips. Like you put it on your face, like just rub it on your lips and then seal it with Aquaphor or with like a lip mask and just get that shit in morning and night. And I was like, that makes sense. Like I'm using it everywhere else and I get it on like the edges of my lips, but I've never like put it on my lip. And so I've been doing that recently and like I think my lips are luscious, soft, and smooth and kissable. So try it out for yourself, my friends. And I love it. Skincare I think is so important. I think it's scary to see all of these like 10-year-old girls that are using retinol. And this was like the self-talk that I had to have with it too. Oh my goodness. Sorry, I just got fully attacked by a cat. Fully attacked meaning he jumped up here and moved the microphone. But like 10-year-old girls that are just like burning their face off with chemicals and are like, oh, I've got to start these like anti-aging treatments. And it made me have to like stop and look at it myself. And I was like, I'm 23, 24. Like, I don't need to be using this as often as I do either. Like I like using the retinol because it was really helping with clearing the scarring on my cheeks from having acne. But like, I was talking to someone I know who has a 13-year-old daughter, and they were like, yeah, the only thing on her Christmas list was like drunk elephant. And I was like, yeah, no, don't buy that for your child. Like they don't need that at 13 years old. All you need at 13 years, like when I was 13 years old, I was using Clean and Clear, the like bursting face wash that had like, if every ABC Family show had a like product placement of it. Does anyone remember that? The like morning burst face wash that was like, it has caffeine in it, so it'll wake you up. How does that even fucking work? First of all, like, no, it didn't. But it like kind of burned your skin off. And then the like little alcohol pad, the like I think Clean and Clear also made them the like literal pads of like formaldehyde. I don't even know what was in it. And they were like scratchy. And it was like, oh, this is toner. It was fucking ridiculous shit that I was rubbing into my, like, I just scrubbed the shit off of my face, and then I'm wiping like pure alcohol into my skin. So it like, I think about the shit that I used to do to my skin, and I don't think I used moisturizer. Like I just would like wipe my face off with those like acid pads, and then I was like good to go. Good to fucking go. I didn't use face wash. No, I didn't use face lotion. I didn't use lotion on my face. I wasn't putting sunscreen on my body every single day. Like I was just winging it, and I was very pale. I clearly am a pale person. Like what the fuck? What the fuck? And I remember my mom had the Cindy Crawford skincare line, the one that had all the infomercials, and she would give me the like serum that was like a cream. And I used that a couple times and I liked the smell of it, but I also was like, I don't like how much of this, it was so small, but I don't know, it was weird. And like also probably was not made for my skin. So yeah, try not to let your kids age before they have to. Try to protect your children's youth. That's my message of the day. Let's pull a card. Criticism without creativity is just pessimism. The honest way to critique is to create the alternative. Today, provide some helpful feedback to someone. I think about this a lot. I think that actually plays into like what I do outside of this podcast of like, how do you develop people? And how do you develop yourself? Like, how do we look at receiving feedback and not receiving it as an attack? And I think how feedback is delivered. I remember one time someone told me that I receive feedback as a, what was the exact words? Assault of character. And I was like, well, yeah, I'm going to take that as an assault of character. Like they were like, I'm going to give you some feedback. You take feedback like an assault of character. And I was like, I feel offended right now, like I feel myself going into like fight or flight mode where I'm like, well, now I have to buck up. Right. And I look back at it and I was like, well, you weren't giving me feedback. You were criticizing me. Like if you're telling me, oh, you're doing a shitty job with this, then give me an idea of how to improve. Right. And so I look back at it and I'm like, I think I receive feedback well when it's actually feedback and when it's constructive. But when it's just like, oh, you do this like shit. Yeah, you're just insulting me and my quality of work and my capabilities. And that's not cool. That's mean. That's bullying. So yeah, I'm going to fight back to that. So be mindful of that when you are critiquing someone, when you're giving them advice, when you are, assisting them in developing, understanding that like one, this person is doing this because their life experience, what they've done before and how their brain works has led them to believe that this is the most plausibly successful way to do it. Right. And then think about the fact that like your experiences have taught you differently. So I like to look at it from more of the perspective of like when giving a solution or not giving a solution, but guiding someone to where you want them to be if you're giving them that feedback of like, hey, what do you think it would look like if we did this different or if we did this way? and explaining where you're coming from with it, and or saying to them like, hey, you're doing this in a way that I think is really interesting. Like, what led you to do it this way? Get to understand, get to know. And coming from the perspective of like, how efficient is it? Do you think it would be more efficient or successful, or that you would feel better about it if you XYZ? So be mindful of that. Um, have a great day. Love you all. Thank you for being here. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share with a friend, and I'll see you next week. Bye.